The night I almost shot Karen. I never thought I'd come close to firing a round at a neighbor, especially not a petite middle-aged woman named Karen. But late one summer night I found myself standing in my tomato patch, shotgun in hand, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. Why? Because that so-called HOA president was crouched in my crops, stuffing fresh tomatoes into a sack under the moonlight. "Hold it right there!" I barked, flicking off the safety. The sound alone made her freeze like a scared rabbit caught in headlights. She whirled around, eyes wide, arms hugging the sack of stolen vegetables. "Don't shoot, it's just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I scoffed. "In my own garden at 2 in the morning?" Karen let out a nervous cackle, her lips twitching in what she probably thought was a charming smile. "Oh, come on. What's a few tomatoes? You have so many." She gestured wildly at my rows of plants, her eyes burning with entitlement, as if it was perfectly reasonable to steal my produce. I steadied my shotgun. "Lady, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm about 2 seconds from calling the law." She held up both hands, the sack clutched tight. "Fine. I'm leaving, okay? But this isn't over." And that was Karen in a nutshell. Never apologetic, always entitled, convinced she had every right to my land. And if you stick around, you'll see just how far she was willing to go to claim what wasn't hers. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and leave a comment telling me if you enjoy growing anything in your own garden. Now let's start at the beginning of my crazy war with Karen. I'm almost 60, and I've spent the better part of my life in the saddle. That cowboy spirit runs deep in my veins. After decades working in construction, I finally saved enough to buy my dream. A few acres of rolling fields, a snug farmhouse, a sturdy stable for my horse, Buck, a modest herd of cattle that follow me around like puppies. The property was supposed to be my quiet place, far from the hassle of city life and nosy neighbors. I should have known that peace wouldn't come easy. The day I moved in, I was lugging boxes from the truck when a bright, overly cheerful woman walked up. "Hi there," she chirped. "I'm Karen, president of the HOA over in the next subdivision. Just wanted to welcome you." She paused, noticing my Stetson hat, the sweat staining my shirt, and my sun-baked arms. Her lip curled slightly as though I were some curiosity at a roadside circus. "We like to keep our area looking nice, you know." I tipped my hat politely. "Thanks, ma'am, but my property's outside your HOA boundary, so I don't think it matters much." Karen's grin tightened, her eyes flashing with something like annoyance. "Oh, of course, but it's always good to be a good neighbor." At the time, I just shrugged off that ominous phrase. Little did I know those words would come back to haunt me. A few weeks later, I was out repainting the old metal gate at the front of my driveway. I just stepped back to admire my work when I heard a throat clear behind me. Sure enough, there was Karen, standing on the gravel in pristine high heels, holding a plate of chocolate chip cookies like some suburban dictator in disguise. "Brought you a little treat," she sang out, flashing that too-perfect smile. I took one cookie, nodding in thanks. They smelled good, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to risk eating them. She eyed my gate like it was offensive graffiti. "You know," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness, "it's such a shame to keep this lovely land locked up. People in my neighborhood would love to enjoy the view. You know, maybe walk their dogs, have a picnic." I nearly choked on the cookie. "Ma'am, I prefer my privacy." Karen's lips pinched together, then she forced a laugh. Of course, she said. But the way she looked at me, I knew she wasn't done yet. One weekend evening, I was trimming brush when I heard unfamiliar voices. I walked toward the sound and found 2 strangers wandering along my fence line like they were sightseeing at a park. "Excuse me," I called. "What are you doing on my land?" They jumped. "Oh, goodness, I'm sorry," one woman stammered. "Karen said it would be fine if we took a little walk around." "Karen said what?" They looked embarrassed. "She made it sound like it was part of the neighborhood," the other murmured. After I sent them on their way, I stared at the empty field, anger boiling in my gut. Karen was lying to people about my land. One hot afternoon, I saddled up Buck for a ride among the herd. Suddenly, I heard a shriek from the middle of the cattle. I nudged Buck forward, eyes narrowing. There, crouched in the grass, was Karen, notebook in hand. "Karen!" I barked. "What the hell are you doing?" She yanked out a pen, waving it like a weapon. "Taking notes," she huffed. "Notes!" She gestured wildly. "The HOA has guidelines about farmland near subdivisions. We need to know if your cows are a nuisance." One of the cows sniffed at her. Karen shrieked, flailing her arms. I couldn't help but laugh. "Calm down, lady. It's just a cow." She scrambled back, stumbling into a fresh cow pie, her face twisted in pure disgust. "This is disgusting!" "Well, that's what happens when you trespass on a ranch," I said, smirking. Her face burned red. "You will regret this," she spat before storming off. I knew then this wasn't over, not by a long shot. A couple of weeks passed, and I dared to hope maybe Karen had finally embarrassed herself enough to stay away. Wishful thinking. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the security camera near my vegetable garden. I grabbed my shotgun, pulled on my boots, and headed out. The moonlight cast eerie shadows over the land as I crept toward my garden, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. A dark figure crouched among my tomato plants, rummaging through the vines. I flipped on my flashlight, the beam cutting through the dark, and there she was, Karen. She had a sack slung over her shoulder, stuffing plump tomatoes into it like she was at some midnight farmer's market. "You have got to be kidding me!" Karen froze, her eyes going wide like a deer in headlights. I racked my shotgun, loud enough to shake the night air. "Drop those tomatoes, now!" She shrieked, nearly jumping out of her skin, the sack flying from her hands. "Don't shoot!" she wailed, scrambling backward. I took a slow, menacing step forward. "Give me one good reason I shouldn't call the cops." Karen clutched her chest, gasping like she'd just run a marathon. "Martin, please, she wheezed, stumbling. I think I'm having a heart attack." I stared at her, unimpressed. "A heart attack, really?" She nodded rapidly, staggering dramatically before collapsing onto the ground. I sighed. "All right, let's test that." I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. "Wait!" she suddenly yelped, sitting up like a zombie rising from a grave. Her breath hitched, her eyes darting to my screen. I think I'm okay now." I smirked. "That's what I thought." Karen glared at me, her face twitching with fury. "This is harassment!" she shrieked, climbing to her feet, her dress now stained with dirt and crushed tomatoes. I crossed my arms. "Harassment? You were the one stealing from my land," she huffed, straightening her shoulders. "Oh, please, what's a few tomatoes? You have so many, and they were going bad anyway." I narrowed my eyes. "Karen, I literally saw you picking the ripe ones." Her smile vanished. "You haven't heard the last of this, Martin. You're a selfish old man, hoarding all this land while families in the HOA struggle." I let out a cold laugh. "Lady, you live in a gated community with a golf course. What exactly are you struggling with?" Karen stomped her foot, her face turning red. "You think you're untouchable, but you're not." She stormed off, muttering under her breath about how I was a selfish, paranoid, land-hoarding lunatic. The next morning, a deputy called me. Apparently, Karen had filed a complaint, said I had threatened her with a firearm. I sighed and sent him my security footage. 15 minutes later, the deputy called back. "Yeah, we're done here." That should have been the end of it, but Karen wasn't done yet. A few days later, I was building a well near my barn. Dug a wide hole, placed some concrete rings, but hadn't covered it yet. Bright yellow warning tape surrounded the perimeter. I had just gone inside to grab a drink when I heard a terrified scream. I bolted outside, heart hammering, and there, at the bottom of the well, was Karen. She was clinging to the edge, dusty and furious. "Help me, you lunatic!" she screeched. "You tried to kill me!" I blinked. "Karen, how the hell did you fall in there?" She flung an arm toward the rim. "You set a trap!" I raised an eyebrow. "Trap? Lady, I'm building a well. There's literally warning tape all around it." Her face turned beet red, but she wasn't about to admit she was at fault. You're trying to get rid of me. You know I've been watching you, and this is your way of silencing me." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Karen, if I wanted to get rid of you, do you really think I'd use an unfinished well? Seems like a lot of work." She fumed, but before she could argue, I tossed down a rope. "Come on, then. Unless you plan to start a new life down there." She snatched the rope, grumbling under her breath as I hauled her up. The second she was on solid ground, she shoved me away, her face contorted with rage. You'll pay for this, she spat, dusting herself off. I knew you hated me, but trying to kill me? This is too far. I just shook my head. Karen, just go home before you embarrass yourself more. She spun on her heel, limping dramatically, her dress covered in dirt. Before she left, she pointed a shaking finger at me. Enjoy your little kingdom while you can, cowboy. And with that, she stormed off toward the road. I just sighed. Karen was many things, a nuisance, a liar, an entitled brat. But one thing was clear, she was getting desperate, and I had a feeling her next move was going to be even worse. For a brief moment, I dared to think Karen had finally embarrassed herself enough to stay away. Then, one morning, I found a thick envelope on my doorstep. Inside was a letter signed by a dozen HOA members demanding that I open my property for limited community access to foster goodwill. I nearly choked on my coffee. They wanted to turn my private land into a park, a freaking park. I marched straight to Karen's door. She answered with her usual smug smirk, arms crossed, already expecting me. "Oh, that petition?" she chirped, pretending to be surprised. "It's just a friendly suggestion." "Friendly?" I growled, thrusting the paper at her. "You want to turn my ranch into public property?" Karen batted her lashes innocently. "Oh, Martin, you're being so dramatic. We just thought it would be nice if the neighborhood could enjoy a little space. Maybe a picnic area, a walking path, a dog park." I cut her off. "This is my farm, not a HOA playground." She sighed dramatically, tapping her fingernails against the doorframe. "Martin, you're so selfish. You have so much land, and yet you refuse to share. What kind of person does that?" I let out a cold laugh. "A landowner, Karen, that's what kind." Her eyes flashed with anger, but she forced a smile. "Well," she said sweetly, "you might want to reconsider, because if you don't, the city might take an interest in your unregulated land." I narrowed my eyes. "Are you threatening me?" She clasped her hands together, tilting her head like an innocent schoolgirl. "Of course not. I'm just saying, if you were part of the HOA, we could help with proper zoning. Right now, well, who knows what violations you might be breaking?" I could feel the rage building in my chest. "Get off my porch, Karen." Her smile widened, but her eyes burned with fury. "Fine, be that way," she huffed. "But don't come crying to me when the city comes knocking on your door." She slammed the door. I clenched my fists. This was war. For a few days, I thought maybe, just maybe, Karen had finally gotten the message. The petition fiasco had been humiliating for her. Even some of her HOA supporters were starting to distance themselves, realizing she was getting reckless. Then the vandalism started. At first, it was small things. Tire tracks appeared near my back gate, deep ruts carved into the damp soil. I hadn't driven anything back there, and it sure as hell wasn't from my cattle. My newly planted corn rows were stomped flat, big patches of trampled earth where healthy green sprouts should have been. Trash piles started appearing near my tree line, old beer cans, crumpled fast food wrappers, and one particularly offensive sight. A half-eaten sandwich smeared with mayonnaise stuck right onto my barn door like some kind of sick joke. I checked the security cameras, but whoever did it knew how to avoid the lenses. Still, I had my suspicions. Then one morning, I stepped outside to find red spray paint scrawled across my mailbox. "Greedy land hoarder." I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Now I had zero proof that Karen did it, but I'd bet every acre of my ranch that she was behind it. Enough was enough. That afternoon, I walked to my truck, hopped in, and drove straight to City Hall. I had already called a surveyor to confirm my land's boundaries after that bogus HOA complaint, and the results had come back crystal clear. My fence was well within my property lines. The HOA's fancy landscaping was actually sitting on my land. Oh, this was about to be fun. When I arrived, I went straight to the clerk's office and requested a formal property violation report against the HOA. The city official, a tired-looking man named Doug, skimmed the documents and let out a low whistle. "Wait a second. This says their decorative flower beds are 2 feet into your land?" I grinned. "That's right." Doug leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "So, what do you want to do? Force them to move it?" I chuckled. "Oh no, Doug. I want them to remove it immediately." Doug smirked. "Damn, this is going to piss them off." "Good," I said. I signed the paperwork, officially demanding that the HOA remove all encroachments within 7 days or face legal consequences. Now all I had to do was sit back and watch the fireworks. The next morning, I woke up early and parked my truck in the driveway, waiting. Sure enough, around 10 a.m., Karen's Lexus crawled up the road and stopped in front of my property. I leaned against the hood of my truck, arms crossed. Karen stepped out, wearing a pastel pink pantsuit, the kind of outfit that had no business being within 50 yards of a farm. Behind her, 2 HOA board members shuffled nervously. Mr. Connor, an older man with silver hair, and Lisa Mendez, a woman in her late 40s who usually just nodded along with whatever Karen said. Karen strode up to me, a fake smile plastered on her face. "Martin," she said sweetly, "we need to talk." I gave her a slow, knowing grin. "Oh, I bet we do," she folded her arms. "We received a rather concerning notice from the city. Something about our landscaping violating property laws?" I nodded. "Yep. Turns out your flower beds, decorative rocks, and that stupid little welcome to our community sign are on my land." Karen's nostrils flared. "That's ridiculous." I pulled out the official property survey, handing it to Mr. Connor. His eyes widened as he skimmed the papers. Karen snatched it from him, scanning it quickly. Her face went pale. This must be a mistake," she stammered. I smirked. "No mistake, Karen, and you've got 7 days to get all of it off my property, or I file a lawsuit against the HOA. Lisa Mendez shifted uncomfortably. "Karen, if this is true, we might have to comply." Karen whipped around to face her. "Lisa, shut up." Lisa's eyes widened, clearly startled. Karen turned back to me, her fake composure cracking. "Martin, be reasonable. This has been here for years. What harm is it doing?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean the same way my farm has been here for years, and yet you keep trying to take it?" Her mouth clamped shut. I took a slow step forward. "You want to talk about being reasonable, Karen?" I said, my voice low and firm. "You've trespassed on my land, tried to steal my tomatoes, sent people onto my property, filed false complaints against me, and now after all that you have the nerve to call me unreasonable?" Karen was shaking now, her hands curled into fists. Her voice rose into a shrill shriek. "You are a selfish, arrogant old man," she spat. "You don't deserve all this land. You should be thanking us for making this place look presentable." I took one slow step closer. "Karen," I said, my voice like steel, "get your damn landscaping off my land." She glared at me, her chest heaving, her face twisted in rage. Then, suddenly, she let out a deranged laugh. "Oh, you think you've won, cowboy," she sneered. Her expression darkened, her lips curling into a snarl. "You have no idea what's coming." I tilted my head. "Karen, are you threatening me?" She smirked. "Oh, Martin, I would never." Then she turned on her heel and stormed back to her Lexus, her heels clicking angrily against the pavement. Mr. Connor and Lisa hesitated, then awkwardly followed her. Before getting into her car, she turned back and smirked at me. "This isn't over." Then she sped off, her tires kicking up dust. I watched them drive away, my jaw clenched. I knew she wasn't done, and whatever her next move was, I had to be ready. One afternoon, my motion detector pinged. I pulled up the security footage, expecting to see a stray dog or maybe a coyote. Instead, I saw Karen, and she wasn't alone. She had 2 HOA members with her, holding measuring tapes and blueprints. They were standing near my property line, pointing at my barn. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to City Hall. A friend of mine worked there, Lisa, a clerk who knew all the local zoning laws. I asked her to pull any recent applications involving my property. She frowned, typing on her computer. Then her eyes widened. "Oh my God, Martin." She turned the monitor toward me. There it was. Karen had filed a formal request to annex my land into the HOA, claiming it was unmaintained and an eyesore. I gritted my teeth. How the hell is my working ranch an eyesore? Lisa shook her head. She also claimed it was a safety concern, something about unregulated livestock and lack of community oversight. My blood boiled. If Karen succeeded, I'd be forced under HOA rules. No locked gates, no livestock, no privacy. I needed to act fast. The hearing was 2 weeks away. I compiled every scrap of evidence. Security footage of Karen stealing tomatoes, the video of her spooking my cattle, her fake petition, the phony fence violation. Then I posted it all over social media. HOA president tries to steal my farm. The post went viral. Neighbors I'd never met apologized on her behalf. Some admitted they'd been bullied into signing her petition. Even a few HOA board members reached out, horrified by what Karen had done. "She lied to us," one of them told me. Oh, and the best part? Turns out Karen had been using HOA funds to pay for her little schemes. That meant she was in deep trouble. By the time the city council hearing arrived, Karen's plan was falling apart. I showed up with my attorney armed with documents, photos, videos. Karen tried to bluff her way through. She batted her eyes and feigned tears. "He threatened me with a shotgun. He set a trap to hurt me." The council members stared at her. I calmly presented the security footage of her stealing my tomatoes, the video of her trespassing among my cattle, the surveyor's report proving the HOA was on my land. One of the councilmen sighed. "Ma'am, is this you spooking his cows?" Karen's face turned beet red. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The council denied her request. Then they launched an investigation into her misuse of HOA funds. Karen slunk out of that hearing like a whipped dog, red-faced and speechless. Within days, Karen resigned as HOA president. Her own neighbors turned against her. Her lawyer dropped her. And one evening, as I sat on my porch sipping sweet tea, I watched as a moving truck pulled up outside her house. Word had it, Karen was selling her home and leaving town. I tipped my hat to no one in particular. Good riddance. And that, my friends, was the end of Karen. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and tell me what's the worst HOA experience you've ever had. It's just